Hello, Libra. Do you feel like the universe has been nudging you lately, gently, but relentlessly, toward a truth you've been trying to avoid? If you clicked this video, I want you to know, it's not a coincidence. This is your sign, your invitation, and your wake-up call. You've just stepped into a very important reading, a deeply intuitive horoscope message crafted specifically for May 20th, a day astrologers call a danger day, but not in the way you might think. This isn't about fear. It's about awareness. May 20th is charged with cosmic energy that can either shake your foundation or realign your future, depending on the choices you make, the truths you face, and the clarity you're brave enough to claim. You're not watching this by accident. There's a reason why you've been guided here, to Zodiac Whisper Tarot. The universe speaks in signs, numbers, inner tugs of intuition, and today, all those signals converge to help you rebalance what's been off-center in your life. This reading dives into what's happening behind the scenes, emotionally, spiritually, and energetically. The cards revealed for you today, Justice, Two of Swords, and the Hermit, speak of decisions you've been postponing, truths you've been dancing around, and the quiet wisdom that can only come from honest reflection. So before we go any further, I invite you to ground yourself in this moment. Take a deep breath. Then, in the comments below, share the angel number that's been following you lately, and type this affirmation to activate your intention. I choose balance, truth, and light on May 20th. Now, allow me to take a moment to express something important from my heart. Thank you. Thank you for being here, for every like, every comment, every share, and especially for subscribing. Your energy doesn't just support this channel, it expands the circle of light we're building together. Because of you, Zodiac Whisper Tarot can keep bringing these transformational messages to those who truly need them. And trust me, Libra, today's message is not something you want to miss. If you've been feeling pulled in different directions, if you've been unsure which truth is your truth, what's coming in this video could shift everything. So stay with me until the very end, because what the universe is revealing is not only timely, it's sacred. It's a reminder that you are not powerless. You are not lost. And you don't have to keep choosing comfort over growth. Not today. So let's begin this journey together. Let's find out what May 20th is really trying to show you. And let's discover how your inner truth can become your greatest power. There's a quiet but undeniable message hidden in the cards pulled for Libra on May 20th, a message that speaks not only to the mind, but directly to the soul. Justice, Two of Swords, and the Hermit are not random draws. They are mirrors, placed gently before you by the universe, so you can see where your balance has tipped, where your voice has gone silent, and where your heart is still waiting for permission to be honest. And this permission? It was never meant to come from the outside. It comes from within. Justice arrives first, not to judge, but to remind. This archetype is not about punishing wrongs, it's about restoring alignment. In astrology, Libra is ruled by Venus and connected to the 7th house, which governs relationships, fairness, and harmony. But harmony, when pursued at the expense of truth, becomes a prison made of pleasing others. Justice asks you to go beyond appearances and reach for integrity. Not just the version of truth that's convenient, but the one that frees you. Perhaps you've been holding your tongue to avoid confrontation. Maybe you've said yes when your heart whispered no. Today, you are invited to reclaim your voice, not with drama or disruption, but with calm clarity. This is how you realign with your path. The Two of Swords continues this message. Here, a figure sits blindfolded, arms crossed, swords in both hands, caught in a place of indecision. This card doesn't scold you for hesitating. It empathizes with your struggle. It knows how hard it is to choose when both options carry weight, or when the cost of honesty feels high. But the greatest risk lies in not choosing at all. Because when you avoid decisions, they do not disappear, they simply get made by someone else, or by circumstances you no longer control. There is sacred power in saying, "This is what I believe. This is what I need." Even if your voice shakes. Even if you lose something in the process. As the saying goes, what you stand to lose by telling the truth can never compare to what you lose by living a lie. Then comes the Hermit, and with it, stillness. This card is an invitation to step back, not to withdraw, but to reflect. In a world that rewards noise, performance, and constant action, the Hermit reminds you of the wisdom that comes from quiet. You may not have all the answers right now, and that's okay. The Hermit doesn't demand perfection, it offers guidance through introspection. Take space. Not because you're running from anything, but because you're returning to yourself. In that space, ask, what feels aligned? What do I truly want, when no one is watching? This trio of cards doesn't promise an easy path, but it reveals a meaningful one. It reflects a process of waking up from self-denial and choosing personal truth over external validation. It also echoes a timeless principle: the truth will set you free, but first, it asks for your courage. The same kind of courage that allows you to trust that your worth isn't measured by how little you rock the boat, but by how fully you stand in your light. You don't have to rush. You don't have to shout. But you do have to be willing to listen to what's really going on inside of you, and to follow that knowing even if no one else understands. This is not rebellion, it is sacred responsibility. It's choosing clarity over confusion, choosing peace over performance, and choosing, finally, to live as the most honest version of yourself. There's a quiet kind of courage that often goes unnoticed, the courage to be honest when silence feels easier. In matters of the heart, especially for Libra, who is naturally attuned to harmony and connection, truth can feel like a disruption. But today's energy invites a reframe. What if honesty isn't a break in the peace, but the very foundation of it? As we move deeper into this reading, it becomes clear that love, real, sustainable, soul-centered love, cannot thrive where truth is quietly withheld, even with good intentions. When the emotional tide pulls you toward reflection, it's not always because something is ending. Sometimes it's because something deeper is being asked of you. Maybe a relationship you once felt anchored in now feels uncertain, not because it lacks love, but because you've changed. Or perhaps someone new enters your space with beautiful timing, yet you're unsure if they're meant to stay. The discomfort you feel isn't a sign that something's wrong, it's a signal that you're outgrowing old emotional patterns. And that's a sacred transition, not a failure. Libra's heart is big, generous, and beautifully relational. But that also means you may find yourself overextending, saying yes when you mean maybe, smiling through moments that ache inside, or staying quiet to avoid ripples. But love that demands your silence is not love that honors your soul. You were not created to diminish your truth in order to be loved. You were created to love as you are, fully and without apology. Consider this: when you hold back your truth to spare someone else's feelings, you're also withholding an opportunity for them to meet the real you. And if they never meet the real you, can they truly love you, or are they loving a version you carefully perform? Honesty doesn't always lead to rupture. Sometimes, it's the beginning of deeper intimacy, because it invites vulnerability, which is the birthplace of real connection. Yes, it can be uncomfortable. Yes, it might change things. But truth, spoken with kindness, never destroys what is truly meant for you. For those in relationships, now is the time to ask not just, "Am I staying?" but "Why am I staying?" Is it love, or is it obligation? Is it comfort, or fear of hurting someone? Your answers don't need to be dramatic. They just need to be honest. And if you're single, remember, your self-honesty today is preparing you for a love that will feel like alignment, not performance. The right person will not require you to bend, shrink, or pretend. They will meet you where you are, fully expressed, fully seen. It's also worth remembering that sometimes silence isn't avoidance. Sometimes silence is space. If you don't yet have the words for what's shifting inside you, let that be okay. Write. Breathe. Wait for clarity. You don't have to rush your emotions to make someone else more comfortable. You don't need to prove or justify what your heart feels. And when the time is right, speak not from defense, but from the soft, grounded place that says, "This is what's real for me." In the teachings passed down through wisdom and spiritual tradition, there's a recurring reminder: let your words be rooted in truth, but carried in love. You don't need to choose between honesty and compassion, both can coexist. You are being invited now to choose both. As you continue through this reading, remember, this moment is not about finding answers that make others feel better. It's about reconnecting with your inner compass. The more honestly you love yourself, the more clearly you will see who truly loves you in return. Sometimes, clarity comes not from knowing all the answers, but from getting honest about what you've been avoiding. In your career and financial life, May 20th presents an opportunity to take a courageous pause, not to freeze in indecision, but to assess where your values and your current actions might be misaligned. The presence of justice and the Two of Swords signals that something important needs your attention. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Now. You're being asked to step back and examine, where have you said yes when your gut said no? Where have you agreed simply to avoid discomfort? Justice, in both the astrological and symbolic sense, calls for accountability, not just with others, but with yourself. Libra is ruled by Venus, the planet of value, beauty, and worth. And when justice shows up, it's not just about legal fairness or external balance. It's a spiritual nudge toward making sure your inner values are actually being honored in your outer world. Whether it's a job, a contract, a commitment, or even a mindset around money, ask yourself, does this reflect what I believe I'm worth? Or am I settling because I'm afraid to rock the boat? The Two of Swords reveals the tension that arises when we know a truth internally but hesitate to act on it externally. This card doesn't call you weak, it calls you inward. You may have been feeling uneasy about a financial decision, or perhaps there's a work situation you've tried to ignore. That inner nudge, the discomfort that doesn't go away. It's not random. It's guidance. And it's asking you not to choose out of fear or fatigue. Sometimes we accept, just okay, because we've been conditioned to believe that asking for more is selfish, or worse, unrealistic. But the truth is, integrity is not built on compromise, it's built on alignment. And alignment requires you to choose from clarity, not confusion. Maybe you're at a crossroads about leaving a job that pays the bills but drains your spirit. Maybe you're considering a new offer that looks good on paper but feels off in your gut. Or maybe there's a budget, a debt, a lingering financial mess you keep pushing down the list because it feels too overwhelming to face. These are not easy things. But they are necessary. Not because perfection is the goal, but because peace is. And peace comes from choosing what is honest, even if it's uncomfortable in the moment. This is also a day to protect your financial health in practical ways. Before signing anything, ask yourself, is this fair? Is it sustainable? Am I being pressured? Don't lend money without clarity. Don't borrow without a plan. And if you've been overspending to cope with stress or seeking validation through purchases, today is a gentle call to pause. Reconnect with the real currency of your life, your energy, your focus, your time. Those are your most precious assets. Honor them. There's a beautiful teaching echoed in divine wisdom. Be faithful in the little things. You don't need to fix everything at once. But you do need to show up today for the truth that's asking to be seen. Sometimes that means canceling a commitment. Sometimes that means asking a hard question. Sometimes that simply means telling yourself, I deserve more clarity than this. That's not selfish. That's sacred responsibility. Because how you handle your resources reflects how you value your own life. And when you start honoring your worth with your choices, not just in love, but in business, in contracts, in time, in money, you begin to see everything shift. Slowly, then all at once. This day may not bring a sudden windfall, but it can bring something even more important, alignment. And alignment, in time, always leads to abundance that lasts. And perhaps what matters most right now isn't how much you earn or how fast you progress, but whether what you're building actually reflects who you are becoming. In astrology, Libra is ruled by Venus, a planet not only of beauty and love but also of values and worth. That means you're naturally drawn to seek balance, fairness, and a sense of peace in everything you do, including your relationship with money, work, and purpose. But here's where things can become complicated. When the external structure of your life no longer mirrors the internal truth of your spirit, a quiet tension begins to grow. You may start to feel drained by commitments that once excited you or confused about opportunities that seem promising but leave you unsettled inside. That feeling is not a weakness, it's wisdom trying to reach you. When the Two of Swords appears, it often signals that you're at a crossroads, not because you don't know what to do, but because you're afraid of what will happen if you finally choose. Will people be disappointed? Will you lose something stable? Will you regret letting go? These questions are valid, and they show you care deeply. But sometimes, clarity only comes after a decision has been made. And when paired with justice, this moment becomes even more significant. It's not just about any choice, it's about the right choice, the aligned choice, the one that lets your outer life match the deeper truth inside you. Choosing balance isn't about pleasing everyone. It's about honoring what is fair, for you and for the bigger picture of your life. There's also a practical side to this moment. It's a good time to slow down and reflect on the agreements you've made, financial, professional, or even internal promises you made to yourself that you may have been ignoring. This might be the right moment to renegotiate a contract, review your spending habits, or even ask yourself if your current job truly allows your talents and ethics to shine. Don't rush these questions. Sit with them gently. Be curious instead of critical. Because what you discover in these quiet, intentional moments can shape the way you handle not just your resources, but your relationship with trust, in yourself, in others, and in the path ahead. You're not being asked to overhaul your entire life. You're being invited to look at one choice with clearer eyes, to pay attention to where you might be compromising your peace for comfort, or settling for confusion just to avoid the discomfort of clarity. And if you need a reminder of your right to choose wisely, remember, even in ancient teachings we are told that a wise builder counts the cost before laying the foundation. You're not being cautious out of fear, you're being discerning out of self-respect. Let this day be a checkpoint, not a punishment. Use it to recalibrate, not retreat. The universe isn't demanding perfection from you, it's offering alignment, but it begins with awareness. Even the smallest adjustment in your finances or your work mindset, when made consciously and intentionally, can ripple outward in surprising and powerful ways. Don't underestimate the strength it takes to pause, reassess, and redirect. That's not weakness. That's leadership, the kind that begins with leading yourself back to what feels true. What you might feel today isn't rejection, frustration, or even fatigue, it's a subtle inner signal calling you to reclaim your emotional boundaries. Libra, your heart is naturally wired for connection, fairness, and keeping the peace. You are the sign of relationship, of balance, of weighing two sides with care and grace. But sometimes in trying to hold harmony, you absorb more than you should. And slowly, without realizing it, your inner world becomes cluttered with the weight of other people's expectations they may never say aloud, but you feel them anyway. Today asks you to pause and notice. Where in your relationships have you been showing up more out of duty than love? And where, perhaps, have you stayed quiet when your spirit longed to be free? There's something powerful about recognizing that not every relationship in your life is meant to be carried forever in the same form. Some connections are seasonal, some are karmic lessons, and some are soul contracts that evolve, or dissolve. What matters is not how long you've known someone, or what they meant to you 5 years ago. What matters is how you feel now, and whether the energy exchange is mutual, respectful, and nourishing. Because even the deepest bonds can grow toxic when only one side keeps watering the roots. And Libra, you deserve to receive the same care you give so freely. When you begin to reassess your circle, it can feel confronting. You may fear being seen as cold, distant, or selfish. But being selective with your energy is not unkind, it's wise. You are not here to rescue others from their own growth, nor to sacrifice your well-being to hold up someone else's comfort. There's a quiet kind of love that exists in letting go. It's the love that says, I release you with peace because keeping you close costs me more than I can give. And in that release, there is grace, not bitterness. This moment is not asking you to make harsh decisions. It's inviting you to become still enough to hear what your inner guidance has been whispering all along. If there are certain people whose presence leaves you anxious, depleted, or invisible, that is not something to overlook. It doesn't mean you need a dramatic confrontation or to sever ties immediately. Sometimes, healing begins with space. With silence. With stepping back so you can finally hear yourself think. And when you do, you may find that the people who truly love you will lean in with understanding, not judgment. There's wisdom in one of the oldest teachings passed down through sacred guidance. Let your yes be yes, and your no be no. Say what you mean. Mean what you say. And stop promising your energy to places your heart no longer wants to go. Not every conversation needs to be had today. Not every thread needs to be tied neatly. But what you can do is notice which relationships feel like sunlight and which feel like shadows. As you move through this energy, remember that connection is sacred, but so is solitude. You are allowed to step back from the noise. You are allowed to choose peace over performance. And you are allowed, more than allowed, to protect your spirit from anything that chips away at your light. Because the most honest relationships won't require you to sacrifice your truth to be loved. They will meet you where you are and invite you to be even more of yourself. Let today be about noticing who those people really are. If you've made it this far, Libra, then you already know. Something inside you has been stirring, gently asking for more. Not more chaos, not more expectations, but more clarity, more honesty, more you. May 20th didn't arrive to take your balance away. It came to remind you that real balance begins with truth. And truth isn't loud or dramatic, it's quiet, steady, unwavering. It sits inside your chest and waits for the moment you're finally ready to listen. Maybe that moment is now. Take a deep breath. Really feel into this. Are the choices you're making today reflecting the person you are, or the person you're afraid to disappoint? Are you holding on to patterns out of love, or out of fear that letting go means starting over? There's nothing wrong with outgrowing something that once felt right. Growth, after all, is not betrayal. It's self-respect in motion. The universe isn't asking you to flip your life upside down overnight. It's inviting you to take just one small but honest step forward, toward alignment, toward integrity, toward peace. That might mean having a difficult conversation. It might mean not responding right away. It might even mean saying, "I don't know," when you've always been the one to have answers. Whatever it looks like, know this: when you honor your truth, you make room for the life that actually fits you, not the one you've been squeezing into. So let me ask you, what are you still carrying today that no longer belongs to you? What would happen if you put it down, just for a moment, and walked forward unburdened? What version of you might be waiting on the other side of that release? You are not behind. You are not too late. You are not broken for needing rest or silence or solitude before choosing. You are simply human, in motion, in discovery, in transformation. And that's more than enough. If today's message resonated with you, I encourage you to anchor it with intention. In the comments below, write: backhand index pointing right, I choose balance. I choose truth. I step into the light of May 20th. Your words matter. They're not just comments, they're declarations. Every time you write, every time you share, you send a ripple out into the collective, reminding others they're not alone. And from my heart to yours, Thank you. Thank you for your presence, your time, your openness. Every like, every subscription, every message you leave here helps this sacred space grow into something even more powerful. You're not just watching a video, you're becoming part of a movement. One that values depth over noise, truth over trend, and healing over hustle. So if this message spoke to you, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need it today. You never know how one small act of light can change someone else's path. The scales are in your hands now. Which way will you lean? Will you choose what's familiar, or will you choose yourself? Whatever your answer is, know that the moment you choose from within, the universe responds. Every single time.